Hello everyone, it's Sheila back again. Welcome to my channel. I'm doing a little video today. I'm going to tell you another little bit of a story about my life, but after I've done this video I'll be going out into my garden. I'm going to get some lunch first because it's about just after 11:30. I'll be getting some lunch first, and then I'm going out in my garden and plant those peas that I never got planted yesterday because the weather wasn't all that good and it kept looking like it was going to rain, and I think I just did not fancy doing any work in my garden. But it's a lovely day today, a bit of cloud but a lot of sunshine as well. So now I'm going to show you. I've got a tub here. This is all my peas that are from the last couple of years. Actually, I never got much planted last year. Can't remember what it was, but I didn't get much in last year. And oh, I know, it was the rabbits. I remember that now, the rabbits. I've lived in this house almost 34 years, and it took a couple of years when we first came into the house to get the garden all sorted, and we got a lawn put in one part, and we already had a bit of a patio at the very top of the garden, and we used to grow stuff in all the other parts around this lawn, and around the other side of the garden was all for growing food and stuff. But I had 3 grown boys at the time. They were all teenagers, and my husband and that, we used to do a lot of stuff in the garden. And after, I'm not sure how many years, but up until this year, I've had rabbits coming into my garden, probably for about 3 or 4 years, and they just ate everything in sight. It doesn't matter what was grown. We couldn't stop them coming in. We tried to block up all spaces. We thought they were coming into the garden, but they found somewhere else. And every time I had a row of carrots grown, you'd see the little bit green coming up, and the next day there was not a thing there. The rabbits had eaten a lot. I had a large strawberry patch where I used to make strawberry jam, and they were for puddings and all sorts, and they ate every leaf on those plants. The same with anything, didn't matter what I grew. The only things I never touched were onions and potatoes, and they were the only things I actually grew in the garden for about 3, maybe 4 years. And then I noticed last year, it was when we got the snow. We got a little bit of snow, not much, but I always knew there'd been rabbits in the garden because I used to see the footprints on the in the snow, but there was no footprints at all. And when I started looking this year, it didn't seem to be any around, so I thought I'm going to make use of my garden. If the rabbits come back, I'm going to try anyway. And that's what I have a little bit. I think I had a little bit of success last year with the onions and potatoes, because like I said, the rabbits didn't seem to touch those. But then I was having trouble with birds as well. Even when we planted the onions, you'd see 1 or 2 of them lying on the top of the soil where the onions had seen the little bit green coming through off them, and thought it was something to eat, and didn't like them after they pulled them out and left them lying. But I managed to put some of them back again. But I'll tell you a little story from when I first moved into this house. Like I said, the garden was like a jungle. We actually exchanged into this house from another area that was called New York in North Shields. And the house we had there it just had one garden at one side at the front of the house, but we never got no sun. And the other side was all open, anybody walking up and down. There was no like fences or anything like that. I never really liked where I was living. And so when we saw the opportunity, someone wanted to exchange from the house I'm living in now, to where we were before. So we took the opportunity and exchanged with them. But they had never done anything with the garden, and it was in a terrible state. The grass was here, nearly up to our necks in the garden when it was fully, the fully grown time. And it did take us a couple of years to get it sorted, and we put lawn down on one side with a lot of grown area around that lawn, and the other side was all soil. We had it all for growing, because like I'm saying, I had 3 grown boys and I got a lot of help from them and whatever I needed doing in the garden. But like in later years, as my husband started to get ill and that, and we couldn't do a lot of what we used to do together. I used to do everything. But when I first started growing, I hadn't really a clue about how to grow anything. I just stuck stuff in the soil and took a chance and thought it was going to grow. And there was one day, I think it was my onions. The first time I ever planted onions, they come up and they had been grown for quite a while. And I looked one day and got up one morning and the tops were all down on the onions. And I thought something's been in my garden. It flattened all those onions, and I was really in a bad temper. So I went into the down in the garden. I had a lot of little sticks, and I was sticking sticks in down by the onions and tying them up to try to get them to stand back up again. And at the time, we only had a little short fence, about a 3-foot fence, and there was an old fella lived up the street, and he was coming past with his wife one day, and he looked in the garden. He could see what I was doing, and he said, "Sheila, what are you doing?" I says, "Well, something's been in the garden." I says, "All me onions have toppled over." And he says, "You silly woman, that's what happens to the onions when they're ready." He says, "The tops fall over." He says, "and the onions, the bulb starts fattening out." He says, "Get all those sticks off," and he says, "and leave them the way they were." So that was a little lesson I learned. I can't remember this old fella's name, actually. No, it's a memory thing. I can't. I know his wife was called Flo, but I can't remember what his name was. But anyway, I had a little tip off him, so that showed me how I had to grow onions. And I was having a bit of trouble as well with peas, because I was putting peas in, and the birds were, as soon as they were coming up the shoots, the birds were just taking them out. In fact, they were taking them out before the shoots even came out. And I think the first year I put peas in, there was hardly any of them came up, and I was really annoyed, because I actually spent, they weren't cheap, the packets of the peas that you put in, and I thought, well, I'll grow the peas and then I'll save a lot from that year and dry them. Just never seemed to get hardly anything out of them. I couldn't save any for the dry for the next year, and the birds just seemed to get the whole lot, and there was only 1 or 2 coming up. And anyway, this old fella that helped me with the onions, the next year when I was going to plant some, I had a word with him, and I was telling him that I hardly got anything out of the peas, and about the birds. Told him about the birds seemed to get the whole lot. And so he said to me, "How do you plant your peas?" So I said, "Well, you plant peas in a line, like, one like this in a line." And he says, "Oh, you plant them in a line? Well, don't plant them like that." I says, "Well, how are you supposed to plant them?" And he says, "Zigzag them." He says, "Go back like this in the soil and keep putting other ones in between the zigzags." And he says, "And you'll confuse the birds." He says, "Because they just think they're going to be in a line, and that's what they do. They peck them out. They just go along the line and just keep pecking until they find the peas in the line. But if you zigzag them and put them backwards and forwards like that, you'll confuse the birds." He says, "They won't know where they all are." And he was right. That's the way I planted them after that. And I got a lot of peas. There was some, I did lose some with the birds pulling them out. And sometimes I pulled them out when they were still hard and they hadn't even, swelled out with the moisture and all that. And I was finding some of them like that lying on the soil and that. So I learned a little lesson there with the peas. And that old fella did help me quite a lot, and taught us a lot of things, how to do, planting certain things in the garden and that, and how to avoid certain things, because you get a lot of things that pests and that spoil your plants. And I mean, he helped me, you know, practically everything that I need to know. He's gone now. I wish I could remember this old fella's name. I'm going to have to go and ask one of the neighbours later on what his name was. But I know his wife moved away up to Scotland. I think afterwards, when he died, she was left by herself. I think most of her family lived in Scotland, and that's where she moved up to. So I miss Flo as well, because she was a good neighbour and used to have a good chat and that. But that was my little way about learning how to plant things in the garden. But like I said, my husband was getting ill, and as we got older, I couldn't manage. You know, I can still do a lot in the garden, but I can't manage like I used to when I was a lot younger. And we decided, with the side of the garden that was all soil, we'd put little small paving things down and make like into a kind of patio. And that was less work for me, because by this time I was having to do everything in the garden. My husband, well, we started this patio together, putting these, I think they were about 12-inch paving slabs were put down, and I made 4 little, I think if you've looked in any of my gardening videos, you'll see that the patio, there's 4 little squares that I used to put flowers in as well. And I stopped putting anything in the garden because of the rabbits. Even the flowers, they were eating all the flowers and the petals and everything. And then we get those big wood pigeons coming down, and I think I had carnations in, and they were just coming into bud, and then we just walked around and just pulled all the buds off the flowers, just pulled them off. They didn't eat them or anything, they just pecked at them and pulled them off. And I just gave up growing anything for quite a while, actually, like. But I should start putting stuff in those squares. But I'm testing it this year for the rabbits. I think it was last year actually when I noticed they weren't coming around, and I did plant 1 or 2 things, and then I never seen any rabbit prints in the snow and that, so I know they were gone. But they're doing a lot of building around outside my garden. There was a railway line, but we used to have a lot of fields and everything, and there was like a bank with trees and that just outside my garden. And I think that's where, when they were doing a lot of building, I think the rabbits lost their homes, and that's how we were ending up coming into our gardens and things. I think because 1 or 2 other neighbours had problems with them as well, but they just seem to have disappeared just now. So I'm taking the chance on what I'm planting this year, and hoping that they're not going to come back. But anyway, I'm saying my husband started doing this patio on the other side, where there was too much work for me alone. And as 2 of my kids moved away in other parts of the country, and there was only 1 that was left up here, and he was working all the time, and that's so I couldn't really get any help. My granddaughter came up now and again when she was a bit younger, before she had all the kids, and that she used to give us a bit of help now and again as well. But before that, we decided, me and my husband, to put a patio over the soil and that's what we did. But we started it together, but I had to finish it because my husband was too ill by the time we got to the near the end of it. And well, anyway, I lost my husband anyway a few years after that, so I'm by myself anyway, so I have to do what I have to do in the garden. And I do get a little bit help now and again. My granddaughter, if she comes up, and her partner Craig, he'll help now and again, but he wasn't working for a little while, and I was getting some help then, but he's working now, so I'll probably not get much help off him either. But I can manage a little bit, but I can't do as much as I used to. And so I'm finished yakking here now, so I'm going to go out in my garden and plant those peas. The sun's disappeared as well, you know, it's just my luck. But it is lovely and warm. So that's my little bit for today, a little bit about gardening. Nothing to do about knitting. I have started. This is the front of that. It's a V-neck sweater. This is the front I started, so I've got started on that. It'll not take me very long to do that, but I'm just knitting of a night time nowadays, because I've got things to do in my garden and that. So, instead of me taking me about a week, it'll probably take me 2 weeks to get it finished. So that's my little bit for now. So thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you another time, and bye for now.